That's it. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everybody and welcome Marsha. And here's the phone. So thanks. So we'll get started. Today's kind of just like a question and answer discussion day. So I just thought we'd do just kind of like Gyema quick and then get right into it. We'll start with, I'll recite the Heart Sutra anyway, because we always do that. And that's blessings of emptiness here. Let's get that here. And if everybody could just mute themselves just while I do this, that would be great. Okay. Homage to perfection wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgiri on Mass Vulture's Mountain, together a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spiro Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spiro Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spiro Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows: Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty and emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They're not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There's no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, so forth up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth up to no aging and death, no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on in the divine perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gata Gata Paragata Parsam Gati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great being, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, son of the lineage, it's like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, an entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, there we go. So let's just you can just listen. I'll recite again like Gyema, or if you have a copy, I'm just going to use again for the West copy, this one here that some of you might have. But just follow along in your mind, do the visualizations, that's good enough. So I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free of suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. From the heart of the protector, the deities of the joyful land, to a peak of a cloud is like a cluster of fresh white curd, all-knowing Lo Tsongkhapa, King of the Dharma, please come to this place together with your two chief disciples. The space before me in a lion throne, lotus and moon, the venerable Guru smiled with delight. Springfield of merit from my mind of faith, please remain for 100 aeons to spread the teaching. Your minds of wisdom realize the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear ornament of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies are ablaze in the glory of renown. I prostrate to you, whom to see, to hear, and remember so meaningful. Placing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, light, scented water, and so forth, a vast cloud of offerings both set out and imagine I offer the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind have accumulated since time without beginning, especially transgressions of my 3 levels of vows, with great remorse I declare each one from the depths of my heart. In this degenerate age, you strove for much learning and accomplishment, abandoning the worldly concerns, you made your leisure and endowment meaningful. Protector, from the very depths of your heart, I rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. From the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion, space of your enlightened minds, venerable holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast and profound dharma appropriate to the disciples of this world. May your Vajra body, created from the purity of clear light, free the rising and setting in cyclic existence, but visible to the ordinary viewer only in its unsubtle physical form, stay on unchanging without waiting until samsara ends. Through the virtues I've accumulated here, may the teachings and all living beings receive every benefit, especially may the essence of the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa shine forever. This mandala is built on a base resplendent with flowers, saffron, water, and incense, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 lands, sun, and full moon. By offering this pure mandala to you, assembly Buddhas here before me, may all living beings experience pure happiness to be reborn in pure lands. The objects of desire, aversion, and ignorance, friend, enemy, stranger, my body, and all possessions, these I offer without clinging for your enjoyment. Please bless me and all living beings to release from 3 poisonous minds. I send forth this jeweled mantle, you precious Guru, so that I'm full right. So just do the Mixamen mantra 3 times and just feel just again that wonderful, it's almost like sunlight's coming down from 3 Gurus Tsongkhapa, blessing us for today, giving us wisdom and insight and ability to sort of open up and share with one another and increase our Dharma wisdom. We'll do this, the main melody that we usually do for our community. Meg me say wei ter chen chen wei zi. Ri me ken pe wan po jam pao yan. Du pung ma lu jom se san wei dan. Dan chen ke pe sun ken song ka pa. Lo sandra pe sha pla so wa de. Mig me se wei ter chen chen rei zi. Ri me ken pe wan po cham pao yan. Du pun ma lu jom se san wei dan. Dan chen ke pe su ken song ka pa. Lo san tra pe sha bla so wa de. Mig me se wei che chen chen rei zi. Dri me ken pe wang po jam pao ya. Du pung ma lu jom se sang wei dan. Gan chen ke pe sun ken song ka pa. Lo sang tra pe sha bla so wa de. You are Avalokiteshvara, a great treasure of unimaginable compassion, Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, and Vajrapani, lord of the secret and story of forts and Mars without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel, the sage of the land of stones, Losandrapa, make request to treat his feet. No dissolution here. Glorious and precious root Guru, please come to the lotus and moon seat at my crown. In your great kindness, please remain with me and bestow upon me the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. Glorious, precious root Guru, please ascend to the lotus and moon seat at my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me. Please grant me the calm and supreme realizations. Glorious, precious root Guru, please remain in the lotus and moon seat of my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me, and please remain until I achieve the essence of enlightenment. Okay. And thank you, everybody. Wonderful to see everybody, and wonderful to see my friend Rhonda from Toronto. How are you? Nice to see you. So everyone can unmute themselves, and And yeah, so it's nice to ask questions or discuss the material we discussed here in the last few times, but it's not limited to that. Obviously, if you have other questions or want to, then that's totally cool. Just I'm just saying it's nice to stay on topic. And so, you know, as they used to joke about in medieval philosophy, you don't argue how many angels can dance in the head of a pin, or it veers off into personal stuff or worse, politics, right? We all get to gripe about whatever and then just waste everybody's time. So it's nice to just, in particular, the class we've talked a lot about, of course, emptiness over and over again, and about refuge has been another one. That those are really, really good topics. But again, even if you want to sort of go back a little bit and wanted to talk about some of the things we were discussing or going over in the classes we did on the three principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness, then that's good too. About 45 minutes, and again, or even just personal sharings if you want, you know, in a sense, just again, just on the material or your own practice or just insights you'd like to share with that, that's great too, you know. So
Matthew.
Yes.
Patricia here.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask a question. I think it's a question. Yeah. A little bit. I want to focus on the concept of non-duality.
Okay.
So I think that's certainly part and parcel of what we've been.
Oh, absolutely. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll answer that, but that's yeah.
And I consider this is what I call one of those slippery concepts, right?
Yeah.
So, so I'm going to pitch what I've got figured out about it, and you know, give me some feedback, please. Mm-hmm. So,
okay, so you broke up a little bit there?
That's not me. Whoever's trying to come in.
Yeah, okay, that's, I think, Marsha, just muted her for a sec. She can come off and
okay.
There's feedback from her mic there. So.
Okay, there we go. So, okay, non-duality. I mean, there's the concept of, you know, opposites. Okay, so that's one way of looking at non-duality. But in more in terms of the Buddhist journey, I'm thinking that it is, well, it's the whole idea of not two, right? And so we are in a dual state when we are seeing ourselves and that around us as inherently existent, but non-dual is the cessation of seeing things and or ourselves as inherently existent and separate. Am I on track?
No, that sounds good. Like this is one of these things. Like I'd like actually other people to give their views on this. I don't want to say opinions because then it sounds like they're just wrong-headed. But everyone can chime in here and what they think. There's a lot of different ways to answer this question, and I know, you know, when I was in grad school studying philosophy of language or analytic philosophy or whatever, you know, years ago, there was always, especially the old sort of Cambridge philosophy, there was always these words everyone would stay away from, like that were these trigger words, right? Like God, existence, soul, I, right? Because they're so nebulous. And so there was always this idea where define your terms. What do you mean? And this is anytime, one of my other favorite philosophers, Gilles Deleuze, that famous French philosopher, said, anytime someone says they want to discuss philosophy or deep stuff, run. Like, you know, and so part of me when you like, because what ends up happening, you sort of get into this thicket of sort of gobbledygook and not know what you mean. So I think a lot of times where I'm going with this is that the first part of any discussion on big stuff like this is defining your terms on what non-duality is, because as you know, if you get different religious people from different traditions here, everyone has a very, very different idea of what that means. And even within different religious traditions, that means different things, even like among Christians, let's say, if you say, what if you understand what would non-duality mean? So among Buddhists, there's many different views on that, depending, like even in the 4 different schools of emptiness, that means something different. Right? So again, a great quote by Wittgenstein, my favorite philosopher, said, people think everything is the same. I want to show them that everything is different. In other words, some of the mistakes we have a lot is when we think everything in a certain set of concepts means the same thing, but you can unpack it and it means different things. So that's educational, to sort of see that there's different ways of looking at this, right? That can be helpful, but we always have to. So it's a huge thing. I was just talking to a friend last night and about Aveda. Like if you look more the non-duality systems in Hindu traditions, right? That's a huge thing. And they use that term a lot, non-duality. I don't think it's used very much, at least outwardly, in a lot of Buddhist traditions, at least that some of the ones I'm familiar with. But in Tibetan Buddhism, in particular Tantra, it is a lot. And I wonder if that's a little bit of a relationship to the old sort of interplays it had with Hinduism back in India a long time ago. So like you say, I'll just give my little answer and other people can sort of talk about this too. There's different ways of looking. One form of non-duality is that the mind always has to have an object, right? That's a form of non-duality. That might be more of a Yogacara understanding of things, right? In mind-only school and emptiness, is that the mind is always in relationship to something, right? So this would be a term when they say consciousness is quote unquote intentional, in the sense that consciousness is related to something or in a relationship. That's a form of non-duality. So you can see that's profound enough. Like basically, if you see your mind is always in relationship to things, then right away, you're not separate from things, even though on a day-to-day basis, we always think we're separate from things. We get lonely, we get upset, we feel in opposition to people or the world. We go around thinking we're like a little air bubble in a tank of water, like separate from things, right? And we're not. The mind always already has to be in relationship to objects or other things. That's a form of non-duality. Then a deeper thing, like you said, Patricia, is emptiness. The fact that things can't exist, as Alexander Berzin says, impossibly or from their own side, or in other words, standing outside of relationships, particularly to the mind. So I think personally, that would be the deeper understanding of non-duality from a Buddhist point of view, right? Is the fact that everything's empty. Now, in a specific definition, they say when you become omniscient, when you reach that point on your Buddhist path, then you perceive non-duality. And what do they mean by that? Is that's even the deeper experience of perceiving the two truths simultaneously, right? So right now, if you're Patricia and you're an arhat in Toronto, you've been meditating emptiness, bing, you finally get it, and you're this famous Buddhist teacher now. If you're an arhat and you just have a stable experience into your Phodist, or you've sort of left or graduated from samsara, so to speak, the two truths still appear separate to you, even though you know they're not, right? In other words, you only perceive emptiness directly when you're meditating. You've got a mind of total tranquil abiding, and every time you meditate on emptiness, you see it directly, space like emptiness. You perceive non-conceptually, right? In other words, you're not using an image or words or concepts. You're seeing emptiness directly, just like vast space and non-inherence of all phenomena. But when you come out of that experience, you see conventional reality. You see everything around you, including yourself, which you know is non-dual. You know it's just a product of your mind. You know it's just projected conceptually from your mind, but it still looks dual to you, right? It still looks that way, but you know it's not. Plus, you know it's empty, but you don't see emptiness directly. You see, that's what an arhat sees, which is unbelievable. It's like something we don't. But once you're a Buddha, you see all that at the same time, right? So that's real non-duality. And that's why a Buddha at any moment could be anywhere teaching or manifesting bodies or whatever, because it's like the entire show there, it's almost, I don't want to sound ridiculous, but it's like you've got a Netflix series that you're watching. Imagine watching all episodes simultaneously. What would that look like, right? You don't have to go one after the other. The whole, you wouldn't even know what that means, but it's kind of like that, I guess you could say, in some levels with the Buddha, that they can perceive all things simultaneously at the same time, all objects of existence. all the relationships, all karma, and at the same time, they're perceiving emptiness. So, Rinpoche always says that's what's incredible about a Buddha, is that they have that divine or transcendent activity where they're teaching and acting and emanating bodies, but at the same time, they're in a deep experience in meditation on emptiness, right? That's beautiful. So that's a quote unquote real non-duality, right? And you'll get that at a certain point in tantric practice when you are, without letting the cat out of the bag too much, but when you're able to dissolve the winds into the central channel, blah blah blah, you'll be able to have those kinds of experiences. And that's like what my friend David Gonzalez, my dear friend and teacher, always said, once you have ultimate example clear light, you can rip your head off and put it back on. Like, the point is, everything is just an appearance. And so you should be able to demonstrate that. Like, if you're the kind of person running around telling everybody that you're at that level, you should be able to do these amazing, miraculous things at that point to prove it to people, right? You'll know you're on that level. There's no ambiguity there. So anyway, that's my take on it. So anyone else want to add to this? I know my dear friend Rhonda is an excellent scholar with this kind of stuff. Yes, yes, you are. So had many talks over the years. Or anybody else, Sue or Colin or Marsha? Or not, no worries.
What I could
Yeah.
I could benefit from hearing what duality is, because duality is where I am, but I could use a definition of that, because I'm not a Buddha. And so when I hear people trying to explain to me what non-duality is, I'm always kind of like, okay, but where am I coming from?
Yeah.
So
what do you think? Maureen, what do you think it means? I mean, this is a test. I'm just like, how do you understand that? Like duality?
I don't actually. I find terms hard. I might have a good understanding of it, but I don't know which term to put on it. So that's where I get bogged down a lot with just terms. I'm like, and then as somebody explains it to me, and then I go, oh yeah, right, I get that.
Yeah, okay.
But when I'm trying to read sadhanas or pray or something, and I keep coming across terms, and I go, what does that mean again?
Yeah.
So I think I can't even remember what Patricia said at the beginning, but I think that might be my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, Patricia, what do you think about that? Like that's a very good question. And thanks for that's a really honest and sincere question. And it's always good to take it back to basics. I always found it funny, like sometimes in grad school, everyone's arguing at this high level, and then someone asks a very simple introductory question, and you see no one knows what it is. And so, it's just like, well, everyone's a big hot shot here, and really we're all just confused. It's just like, what? So what do you think? What do you think? What is duality? If we're in the world of duality, or we're stuck in dualism, dual, more than one, what do you think that means?
Not recognizing that we are the other, that we are the flower is us. I mean, when I read Thich Nhat Hanh, I calm down.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand, but I just feel calmer. And I like saying that, like that, I don't know what that means. I am the flower, the flowers.
Calmer? Like that's a really good why do you think you feel calmer? I mean, why is there quote unquote more peace in you?
Because he gets me out of my head.
Yeah. And
into like if I'm gardening and I'm talking to the flowers, I feel very, I feel it, but I don't understand it, and I don't care that I don't understand it. But sometimes when I'm working on Tantra and trying to understand Buddhism, I'm trying to figure it out, and I get really stuck in that.
Yeah. So
just I guess I'm crying now, for goodness sake.
No, it's good. It's good.
But anyways, I think it has to do with the being irritated with life and reality, and not recognizing that it doesn't matter. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm kind of having a hard time putting words for this.
That's good. But bringing it back to what you were saying on duality, yeah, that's when you start having a little bit of experience of non-duality, even poetically or through these teachings, or even hearing it, it brings peace. Like and it does. Like that's what makes them. There's a lot of good. There's many very special things about Thich Nhat Hanh, but I know a lot of people, not just myself, say just reading his books, it's like your mind's pacified, right? It brings peace, peace in every step, peace in everything you're reading from him. Being around him is bringing peace, right? And
Yeah.
maybe I'm not saying, but it's, there's a sense of he's always showing the unity or oneness to things in his descriptions or his prose. So that's pacifying your suffering, on like mental suffering, your your dukkha or whatever. So if that's the case, then why are we in that kind of mental strain or suffering, dissatisfaction, existential angst, anxiety, anger, ignorance, whatever? Because we're not at peace, and we're not at peace maybe because we're not feeling that oneness. So if we're not in that oneness, we're in that two-ness.
Yeah.
In the sense of feeling separated or in opposition to things, removed to things. Like I was saying, it's a term here, like being in relationship. I know that sounds kind of like a hippie kind of, people use that term a lot now, but really that's a really good term, right?
Yeah, I think, I think part of the thing that makes me cry is the not even being in relationship with myself.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with like love and compassion, and for self as well. Like I get so cranky at the stupidest things, and irritable with people, and I always comes back to, oh, well, that, later that triggered me because I have that quality and I can't stand that quality in me. So that when I see it up there, so is that, would that be duality?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, self-cherishing, right? This idea of cherishing yourself. In other words, you're the center of your own universe. You're the object of your concern at any moment, right? That's sort of I guess, kind of like butter that you're putting, like this big chunk of butter you're putting on something sticking out of things, which is your self-grasping, right?
Right. Which is like, I never think about that. I have a hard time relating to the, self-cherishing thing, but it's like the world should go the way I want the world to go. That's
exactly.
Self-cherishing, right?
Yeah.
That I can relate to.
Well, and also self-concern. I mean, like there's a number of people have said, like, in Western countries, so many people have self-esteem issues. And I mean, whatever. I mean, you just look around the way the world is, we're also traumatized and crazy. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with having self-concern and healing and trying to take care of ourselves, because things are so messed up and people are genuinely suffering. So that's not what we mean when we're talking about self-cherishing. Sometimes when I say self-cherishing, oh, what are you talking about? And, I have PTSD. Does that mean you don't want me to go to the doctor? No, hey, whoa, I'm not saying that, right? It's, this idea, maybe that's a bad translation. You'd probably have to look at the Tibetan or the Sanskrit. But when we talk about cherishing others, they say it's like a mother with her children, or someone you really love. Like, let's say even that can be triggering to someone if they don't like their mother or whatever. But let's say you are with your pet. You have a pet cat or pet dog that you love, and just that cherishing where you want them to be happy, you want to feed them, you want to take care of them, you want them to be warm and having a nice nap in your house, and you're watching TV and you have them and you're petting them. It's that kind of care and love and affection that you have. So in LamRim, they talk about this is the basis for generating bodhicitta with the sevenfold cause and effect, right? We are trying to generate affectionate love, right? We want to be affectionate with, it sounds funny because you can see we're not like this with most people, but we want to be able to like people. I always remember a friend of mine at work was saying, hey, we all get this job as flight attendants because we say we like people, but we hate people. Like, in the service industry, we're always fighting with everybody in public, right? But anyway, like, you have to like people. I mean, you can't try and be a Buddha unless you actually like sentient beings. So it's not just that we like them, we have to actually love them and have affectionate love to them. So once we get that affectionate love, we get the next step, which is cherishing love, right? Which is they say like a parent with their child, or you can be like, let's say you with your pet. And then that flips into wishing love. The true nature of love is where you wish them to be happy. You want them to be happy. And then you realize that, of course, they're not happy because they're in samsara. This is what generates compassion, superior intention, bodhicitta. Now you're on your way to trying to become a Buddha. So let's just go in the diluted, let's turn the radio dial to the other part of the radio there, where we look at that same cherishing, that I love my cat, or I love my kids, or whatever, I love this, I love that. Now apply it just to yourself at the expense of everybody else. That's your default mode as a self-cherishing being, right? And you just have to look at, I'll just talk about my mind, all the little dramas and stories that are on a loop in your head. Why me? Poor me. Why did this happen to me? Why did they say this to me? That's not fair. I can't believe this happened. Da, 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 da. I mean, just check yourself. Like when you meditate, you actually see all the dirty laundry in there, all the garbage. Particularly if you're doing retreat, you just, you look at yourself in the mirror and go, oh my God, it's just, I'm obsessed with myself. I'm such a narcissist, right? And you can see, what does that do right off the bat? It causes you so much suffering. So that's all predicated on the idea that there is something, a truly existent self, which is not in relationship to things, right? Anytime, it's interesting, anytime you grasp at that self, if you have a good contemplative awareness, you can see when that self arises, it's in opposition to things, it's separate from things. I mean, that's what, like Vashe Labdran, the famous lineage guru that taught Chud, she always said that the best way to trigger that experience is to get scared. In other words, put yourself in an intense situation. You can't, I don't say you can't do it at home, but you know what I mean? You're doing here, oh, and I'm trying to grasp. She said, I mean, and of course, Rinpoche always said, like, in the old days, you live like whatever, you're a farmer in Eastern Tibet. Well, then you have to go to the graveyard or someplace scary. You go out at night because there's monsters or something, right? But as Rinpoche always said, I mean, you just got to go down to downtown Toronto, the Eaton Center on a Friday afternoon. And I mean, that's like, I always do, it's like the plane, that's the pressure cooker, right? We used to have these flights to Hong Kong where it's 500 people. And let's say you're an hour delayed and everybody's hungry and it's just like a jungle, like it's a war, right? Like, and that's where it's like my ego's coming up. And so, I'm just sitting there in the back and just like, I look at my mind, it's like, what kind of buddies have I? I'm like, I'm evil. Like I'm so negative. And that's just, hey, I just got out of retreat. Like I was so blissfully pure back in Nelson, look at me now, right? So that's a good way of seeing that. And of course, that's the experience of duality, because if someone said, hey, Matthew Maureen, where's your bodhicitta? What are you talking about? I don't have bodhicitta. That's so stupid. Like in that moment, it's you against the world. You're this kind of Hobbesian monster, right? That has to be based on ignorance. Because when you look for that self, it's nowhere to be found. There's no such thing as that kind of a self, right?
Yeah.
That's duality. And that's your default, because anytime you're in a stressful situation, it just flips into that automatically.
Yeah. It's like ignorance is forgetting.
Yeah.
It's like I forget in seconds. Somebody will come up to me and say something to me and I'll react right away. And then, right afterwards, or a couple of hours later, weeks later, years later, I go, wait a minute, they didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Like that's the self-cherishing thing where you just, like I'm very sensitive and reactive.
Yeah.
And so that's duality. It's not remembering that the other person is suffering and whatever they're, instead of, I've had counselors say to me, in the past about, situations that are really difficult, you need to have, how about trying to be curious about that? And I'm like, curious, like, shouldn't be that way, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, well, this is it. And you need a space or openness to have that kind of patience or whatever. I mean, patience is a parameter of perfection, because patience just means not retaliating, right? Not feeling angry. In that moment, you have that space where you don't instantly get triggered. I mean, these are just, Anna Forrest, that famous yoga teacher, always says, never waste a trigger. In other words, when you get triggered, look at what's triggering you. Like, that's a educational moment, right? Like when we end up one day talking about vows, and you end up, you know, I really believe, not that I do it, I mean, I'm always off and on, but, you know, Geshe Michael Roach always said to keep a book of your vows, the book, and it's an best practice you'll ever do. But I always say, what's interesting is when you track your vows, most of them you keep, but the 5 to 10 of them you always break at any moment are your triggers. And that gives you a whole psychoanalytic profile of all your hurts and issues and traumas and everything else, right? Then that's where the work is, right? That's the friction point on the clutch. That's the stuff you have to purify. Like some of this stuff is so easy to keep. I mean, and that's why those are, you don't need to make a vow for those, because you keep them anyway. The vows are that small little percentage of the ones that are really are your soft points. And again, you know, that famous quote, when I see an angry person, I see, Maya Angelou or Alice Walker, I can't remember who said it, when I see an angry person, I see someone suffering, right? Those triggers, when you get like that, and there's so much self-cherishing and anger and ignorance and stuff like that, a lot of times they're from very, very deep wounds or deep sufferings. So you can go in there and do the healing work for that.
Yeah.
But you see, this is all duality. Like, and then again, this is just samsara. Samsara is duality. And that's what, like you said, it's a question of your habits, but also of remembering. This is why, like Gnostic Christianity coming out of Neoplatonism, they say everything is remembering, right? Like what's important is remembering. Like somehow we're lost in ignorance. We're lost in forgetting. You know, you could sort of say, well, there's primordial Buddhists, Samantabhadra, and that's who we really are, and descended from them. And yet we've fallen into error, you know, like Gnostics, like Sophia, we've fallen from heaven into the hell of our own delusions. And all we have to do is wake up and remember, you know. So, but this is the work. This is your spiritual work. Anyway, does anyone want to add to that? Of course, as always, I'm shooting my mouth off here for 10 minutes straight. Does anyone want to add a little bit to that?
I just have a comment after talking about triggers.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, she had an expression that taught me so much about triggers. And as you were saying about that, that's an opportunity for an education. She says, when you get triggered, she says, you know, take it on, forget about the person, and just think to them, thank you for showing me more about myself.
Yeah.
And it's right on. Yeah.
You are your actions, but most of all, you're your habits, right? So I mean, that's so that shows you your habits. Like there can be triggers in a good way. Like when you become a bodhisattva, that's where they say, like if you're an Arya bodhisattva, where someone says, hey, can I have your glass? Oh, sure. Hey, I'm happy you like my glasses or whatever. Like you get triggered in a good way because habitually you've created all these amazing habits. And so anything that happens to you, the reflex is to be loving and compassionate and do good things. But right now we're just getting triggered in all the wrong kinds of ways, right? So, but again, that shows you who you are. And it's actually, like I say, therapeutically or psychoanalytically, it's fascinating when you map out your vows and see where your issues are. That's actually, that's who you really are on an ego point of view. Now, that's not who you really are underneath you, but if you want to look at the fascist architecture of your own ego, all these sort of character armors and Russian dolls of fictional views on yourself, right, that are just all just full of suffering and delusion and self-loathing and everything else. Most of the time that's in the dark, like Jung would say. Like Jung always says, you got two shadows, the one you kind of know and then the one you don't know at all. When you start doing more meditation, charting your vows, you can start to sketch that monster pretty accurately, right? And sometimes it's kind of illuminating what you find. It's like, wow, I never knew that about myself, you know. So And again, that's why you need teachers in a communities. They help you with that process of self-discovery. Is your teacher ends up pointing out all these bad things about you that, of course, you're invested in not seeing, right? So, yeah.
When you talk vows, do you mean like our tantric vows and our bodhisattva
Exactly.
vows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of them, as you know, depending on what level you're working at. Like, even if you just wanted to look at the pratimoksha vows or the freedom vows of, not killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, or intoxication, those ones alone, as you know, you can just go so deep with them. I remember this one Buddhist nun was saying, what does it mean to be intoxicated? Right? Like, nowadays, everyone's intoxicated. We're all addicted to our phones. We're all addicted to social media. We're all addicted to shopping online. We're all addicted to Netflix. Anything sort of taking you away from the present moment or awareness. I mean, I think it is Jung that said, what is a demon? Anything that distracts you, which is, of course, the Buddhist definition of what Amara is. So if that's the case, in any moment where you're being taken out of awareness and getting distracted, think of that now, how everyone, including me, is just so distracted. So that alone, those 5 vows, what does it mean to kill? I remember one person saying, you can kill someone's happiness. So you're not running around stomping on bugs and stabbing people in the subway, right? But you can be a negative person where you're just bringing other people down, where, like, I like the farmers market. Oh, that farmers market sucks. Do you realize who actually sells your stuff there, Patricia? What kind of person are you that shops at the farmers market, man? Now I've just ruined your farmers market experience. I've kind of killed your happiness, right? So, Mm-hmm.
Hello, Matthew.
Yeah.
And everybody, thank you. I'm really benefiting from this discussion.
Yeah.
I actually listened to you when I was away hiking in my little bed in my jeep. I listened to it a couple of times. So,
yeah.
But yeah, and so Maureen, this duality thing, to me, the biggest thing is you get this right and wrong duality, and you live from that, and that is a justification for everything, your concept of right and wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. And the other thing is with this duality and suffering is renunciation, bringing that in. And the big thing for me was realizing that, somebody said it, I learned renunciation is actually having compassion for yourself, because you're really suffering. And I think my experience is the farther you get on the path, the more it hurts when you screw up. And so just realizing that, yeah, you gotta put something into the renunciation, and it's like taking care of yourself, and building in maybe some kind of mechanisms. Actually, for me, it's like I call taking a back seat. Like you want to be in the front seat directing everything, but if you sit in the back seat, then you can maybe hear the other person more. But one of my questions, and it's totally different from what we're talking about now, or maybe it's not, is you were talking once about the seed syllables. If it's all right to bring this up now. And it just seemed, wow, I really don't really know about these seed syllables. And you were talking about how it was so important mixing the seed syllables with your breath. And so I guess my question is, do I like paint out the seed syllables to really understand them? How does one get the understanding of the seed syllables? I mean, I know it's your crown, your throat, and your heart, but I think I'm really missing something. Maybe it's my karma. But we'd like to know more about how that works together with the breath.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing the really good stuff. I know what you'd mentioned about judging and right and wrong and your own views. I think that's really good. That's always, what's interesting is when you think about it with non-duality, we're always making judgments, and the mind's making judgments sense it's labeling things. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think on a diluted point of view, what's interesting is that you never see that you are judging, or that your judgment is just your judgment. That's part of duality there when you think about it, right? Our judgments, we always think, are the judgments, the cosmos judgments, the divine eye judgment. Like, you know, when I say, oh, whatever, trans a crappy Buddhist, that's like written right from Mount Sinai with the stone tablets. That is the judgment. That's the, really, it's just my take on something. It's my karma to see you that way, let's say, right, as an example. So it is, but that alone, even if you just sort of see your judgments, it's just you, that's your karma, your stuff. That alone, I think, is freeing on one level. I mean, everybody nowadays is so judgmental, as we know, right, in politics and social stuff. And again, a friend of ours studied with Roshi Bernie Glass, and he was such a good teacher. And of course, you know, he's from the 1960s stuff, but his expression is always, just my opinion, man, just my opinion. Which I love, right? Of course, it's right out of the 1960s, but that's true. Your opinion's just your opinion. Your judgment is relative to your karma and your perspective and everything else, and that's good. That's great. Let's validate it. But usually, when we're giving our take on things, yours truly or whatever, we're not meaning that when we mean it. It's not, well, this isn't just my take. This is the take, or this take has more weight than anyone else around here, right? That's an important thing to really say. I just wanted to add that in there. So there's a non-duality and duality of our own judgments. I don't know, like this, of course, if it's okay going out on YouTube here. I don't really, maybe we could do a course on Tantra sometime with Rinpoche's permission and whatever. I mean, I always, even if this was just a private call amongst us, I'm always get a little like, oh, where's this, talking about Tantra? Am I going to get struck by lightning there? Tremble behind me there. You'll see a little beam of light go there and burn me for saying anything, right? But that's, of course, a really complicated, and I'm by no means an expert, complicated question on what seed syllables are, right? But like I say, we could sort of bring in the discussion a little bit, is that seed syllables, you could sort of say, are a condensation of a mantra. Like if we have a mantra, which is just a name, right, of a deity or a Buddha, that a higher Arya being received at some point in a vision, was taught or got it in some kind of a revelation. And Buddhas have so many names, but when you do the translation of the Sanskrit, and people say it's the language of the gods, it's the vibration of your chakras and everything else. Sanskrit, there's all different views on that. But again, in the end, they're just labels. And that's why, like, I used to think when I was learning Tibetan a little bit with Rinpoche back in the mid-90s, I was so lazy I didn't continue. Then anyway, blah, blah, blah. But what was interesting is I'd look at some of the seed syllables in Tibetan, and I'd realize some of the things about them weren't anything mystical. They were just grammatical, which was like, oh, okay, so it might look a little different if it was in English. Like in the big picture, they're just labels. It's important to see that they're empty on that level, but they are sacred because they are given to you, the vibration of that seed syllable. It's kind of like the condensation of the mantra. That's a direct connection to a Buddha because it was spoken by a Buddha to someone who's now giving it to you. So it really, really is kind of like a revelation in it, a kind of like a divine bridge from you to a Buddha and their Buddha universe, because they one and the same thing. And you can activate that energy by using that syllable or that mantra for yourself. Because of course, if everything is just labels on bases, when I take a label, which is a mantra, and put it on a base, what happens? You end up creating something, right? You manifest something. Now, this is a wrong base, right? When I say the label stop sign on the green go light, I'm making a mistake because the label's on the wrong base, right? The label of stop goes with the red light. And, you know, I might have talked about, this is all relative, labels and bases. Like I remember when we went to Japan, and I hope I'm not repeating myself. We went for a few weeks with our dear friends Bill and Chi, 2006 or something. And it just goes to show just how you label things in perception, right? But Bill said, what color is the traffic light? And I said, it's green. And he said, it's blue. And I said, no, you might know this about Japan. But of course, they don't have green in Japan. It's blue, right? It's blue, yellow, and red, right? So what's interesting, so everyone calls it blue. You go on the blue, you don't go on the green. So of course, I say, wow, isn't that weird? But I'm like, it's weird because it's green. Well, you know where this is going. A week later, it was blue to me, right? So when we change the labels, right, everything starts changing. But again, labels and base and conventional, that's a long talk on emptiness, is very important, but we have to have the proper base for the label. We have to visualize ourselves as a deity to stick the mantra in seed syllable of the label on us. And then again, when you change the labels, the base changes. Like there's all sorts of discussions here, but this is how we end up changing reality. And you know, doing proper peer review, and you know, this is Tantra, right? And this is a way of you know, what they say, we change the conceptions and the appearances follow, and then you know, we move towards enlightenment that way. But that's a long discussion for seed syllables. But you can see that that's a form of judgment, of course, because we're using labels and conceptions. But you can see that this is where you see that, you know, with renunciation and everything else in non-duality, is that our labels and our way of judging things create reality, right? So once the emptiness is understanding that process, that we create reality through our labels and conceptions and everything else. Like your grammar of the language you speak is a mantra. It is speaking English at this time in Canada with the self that you are is creating a certain kind of reality, right? That's true. So speaking other languages has other kinds of realities. Language is the house of being, as Martin Heidegger would say. And this is one of the reasons, like the UN has tried to preserve as many languages as possible. They're all dying out. And with each language that disappears, a world or a universe disappears, right? So once we study emptiness and we see that we're creating things through concepts or labeling, we see that anything's possible, that you can create yourself as a deity or whatever in a Buddha pure. Is that, I don't know, I feel like I'm babbling at this point. Is that helpful, Sharon, or it? Like it's a longer discussion, of course. We'd have to have a class on Tantra really to talk more about mantras, and it's specifically what you're referring to, Vajra recitation, and the link between mantras and prana, and why we're doing that when we're doing Tantra. What, particularly for completion stage, why do you want to purify your prana? Why do you want your prana to go in your central channel? Like those are, and what does non-duality of winds in the central channel mean? But that's all Tantra. That's all need an empowerment, need to be a practitioner, need to have that situated in your yogic practice, right? So
That was helpful for me.
yeah, okay, I hope so. Anything else is getting close? Anyone else comment, sharing? Yes. So the next class, it's just a few classes I'd like to do, will be on pramana or valid cognition. So that's what we can start that next week. So just to let people know. But again, if people have any questions with this or want to talk, if you even next week, if you have something really burning, you can bring it up and we can answer it quick before we go into a new set of teachings here. So anything else?
Matthew, do you mean 2 weeks from now, because Rinpoche's meditation?
Oh, you're right. You're wrong. 2 weeks from now. Sorry. Next week is the Mahamudra retreat. You're right. I'm not thinking. Yeah, 2 weeks from now. So that's good. And that'll be great, of course, if you're trying to make that Mahamudra retreat with Rinpoche, it'll be just fabulous. So
I had another little question. The refuge tree that you lead us with,
Yeah.
Shakyamuni as the Tsongkhapa, Shakyamuni, and Vajradhara.
Yeah.
And consort.
Yeah.
And I think you said that was Sutra, Merit Field.
That's from Lama Chopa. So Lama Chopa offering the spiritual guide, or Guru Puja. That's, I mean, technically anybody can practice that. They always say Lama Chopa, anybody can practice that, including the Sog. But if you want to read a commentary on it, you have to have the highest Yoga Tantra initiation. That's kind of the tradition.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the visualizations.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but that one comes from Lama Chopa. Like I say, it Galupa tradition, we always have to make I'm just joking, make everything complicated, but we've got sort of 3 merit fields to visualize, right? Or refuge trees, not just one like some lineages. Some is just one, it's always the same thing. We've got 3. So the LamRim one that we visualize, the 6 preparatory practices for LamRim that we do before we're meditating on LamRim objects, called Jorcho, that's the one where we visualize the big tree and all the different, like the vast and profound lineages of gurus, this and that, but that's where it's Buddha Shakyamuni in the center, and then Vajradhara at his heart. That's the standard one. Like even when you do refuge prayers, like even if a bunch of us, we just sit together, we're just going to do mindfulness meditation, and I say, okay, visualize the Buddhas, and we take refuge, and then we'll just sit and watch our minds for half an hour. Technically, that's the merit field we should be visualizing.
So Tsongkhapa doesn't come into the LamRim.
He's
in there, but he's not in the center.
But he's not the central figure.
Okay.
So when we do Guru Yoga or whatever, like we going a little bit different on our path, there's 2 traditions of Guru Yoga that come from the Galupa tradition, from Tsongkhapa students. So the first one's what they call from the Segu lineage, and that's Ganden La Gyema, right? That was from Sherab Senghi, I can't remember, one of Jay Tsongkhapa's students. He had that vision of the 3 gurus, Jay Tsongkhapa, Gyaltsabje, and Kedrubje. So that's sort of one lineage associated with Segu Monastery. This is what they call the Segu lineage in the Galupa tradition, was famous for being a very yogic, meditative tradition where people become really good yogis and yoginis rather than just kind of like intellectuals or whatever. It's very sort of, a lot of famous Mahasiddhas and retreatants in that lineage. So that one form of Guru Yoga that we do all the time because it's so short, it's from that. That's one. Again, like we all do that. Now then, Lama Chopa or Guru Puja is from first Panchen Lama, and he did, first Panchen Lama wrote it as an offering to his teacher, right? And then his teacher liked it so much they published it. So that was sort of an in-house thing where he wrote a liturgy as a form of offering to his teacher, right? And then it ended up, we all use it now since the 1600s or something. So that's the one where you have Jay Tsongkhapa and Shakyamuni Buddha and Vajradhara. And so Lama Chopa, that one is what they call the Ensa lineage, which is the Kadam emanation scripture, Mahamudra teachings and so forth that go from Jay Tsongkhapa all the way down into first Panchen Lama and Rinpoche and our teachers right now. Baso Chokyi Gyaltsen, Chokyi Dorje, Gewan Sapa, Sangye Eshe, and first Panchen Lama and down. They call that the Ensa lineage, right? From Ensapa, who it was more secret until he ended up teaching it a little more openly. So Lama Chopa, what people do is the tradition is that you do that practice all the time, and then you mix it with your highest yoga tantra practice. So I can it's like traditionally, let's say you're the superstar Galupa practitioner, you would get initiations in highest yoga tantra initiations in Yamantaka, Goya Samaja, and Haruka Chakra Samvara. You mix certain parts of those 3 tantras together. I'm not going to say which, and I'm not an expert anyway, but you take certain parts of those things, you put them together, and then you do it in the context of the Lama Chopa sadhana. Okay? So technically, like one thing is doing the sadhana, you're doing it as Yamantaka, for instance. Then you would do sort of the bliss stuff or whatever from Haruka, body mandala practice and everything from Goya Samaja. So that's mixed. And the top technologies, yogic technologies in those three tantras go together in that practice, and then you get enlightened very quickly. Because it's all done as a guru yoga. It's extremely beautiful and profound. So that's why Lama Chopa is seen as kind of like the pinnacle practice in the Gelugpa tradition. If you do a 3-year retreat just doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
So anyway, like my teacher and friend David Gonzalez, he studied with a wonderful teacher in Montreal you might have heard about, Geshe Khenrab, who passed away in the maybe 1992, 93, I can't remember. But he asked him, he said, when he was younger, he was in Montreal, and said, oh, Geshe, have you done a lot of retreat? No, I haven't. He's so humble, right? Well, I did one retreat. I did, I think a year or two or something. I did just the Guru Puja retreat. I just did Lama Chopa retreat. And he was like, oh my God, like it's kind of a hint that he's working at this super high level. Like for most people, it's like, oh, I'm just doing the Guru Puja every day, big deal, anybody can do that. But if you're doing it as like a close retreat, then you're doing all the super high level completion stage stuff, right? And he was amazing. Geshe Khenrab was at that level. You'd never know it, but he was a very, 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 very realized being. So. Anyway, so so I've been doing like, just to sort of say how things always change. I just wanted a year ago or more, whenever it was, just to do Lama Chopa, not to teach. And then here we are, where you're listening to me sort of blab on for an hour here, and we just do the visualization of the Lama Chopa merit field. I've just sort of tried, I don't know what I've been trying to do, to be honest, in this is just kind of being a little bit more spontaneous, but I've always liked doing the Lama Chopa merit field in the visualizations and doing kind of a short form of this practice because it's so profound. Even visualizing that figure, Losang Tube Dorje Chang, the meaning of visualizing Tsongkhapa with Buddha at his heart and Vajradhara at his heart, and focusing on that's extremely, extremely deep. Is that clear, Moin? Does that kind of make sense?
I think so. So there's three visualizations. The Lama Chopa one is Tsongkhapa Shakyamuni Vajradhara, which is the name you just said that I can never get fast enough. Lobsang.
Tubwang, Dorje Chung. Those are Tibetan names, like Losang for Losang Drapa. Tubwang is a Tibetan term for Buddha Shakyamuni, the Buddha. And then Dorje Chung, Dorje is a Vajra, and Chung means holder of the Vajra, holder of the diamond, which is Vajradhara's name. When you say Vajradhara, that's what Vajradhara means. Someone like the holder of the Dorje here, the Vajra. And
okay, so that's Lama Chopa, and then LamRim or Chojo is Shakyamuni Vajradhara at his heart. Yeah. And then the third one you're talking about is just Tsongkhapa with the two students.
With the two students there.
And that goes with Lagema.
Ganden Lagema, yeah. So hundreds of deities of the land of joy or Ganden Pure Land, right? Tashita Pure Land.
Okay, cool. Because when people say, get this sadhana, and they use a different name that's on my sadhana, I'm like, I feel like all shaky and I should know this, and then I don't.
No,
and it's like, more and more I'm like, I don't know this. Oh, well, I guess I'll just meditate while they do something. But it's taken me years to get there.
Right? Yeah, Tibetan Buddhism. I remember wanting to, years ago, I was like, Mom, I want to teach you Tibetan. She's like, are you crazy? It's so complicated. I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're taking the challenge.
Yeah, I know, I'm doing my best. So anyhow, it's 10 after 9. I don't want to keep you guys too long, so we can maybe start winding up. Is everything's okay, you guys? Anything else? Or yeah, okay. There's going to be, as long as we do this, we'll always have a chance to do more questions and answers and whatever. But again, you can always just send a text or an email, or even if you really have a burning question at a regular class at the end, you can just say, hey, this is really, I'm really totally confused, or da da da. What do you think? And we can look at that. So Anyhow, so let's just take a moment to dedicate all this great merit and discussion. I hope it was helpful. And if anything, just getting together and in the spirit of Dharma sharing and being present moment here and going over the Dharma, there's a lot of merit in that. So by blessings of all holy beings and the truth of karma, our superior intention or bodhicitta motivation, our Dharma wishes be fulfilled, and all sending beings reach in light. Let me just turn off the recording here.